Module 11. During a previous module, I spoke of the dwaddle. The dwaddle is a visual, iconic symbol. It's a drawing of a stick figure, a simple representation that anyone can do. It's hard to get it wrong, actually. Only if you're an artist or have a proficiency in drawing, then you might be able to do it wrong, as you'll actually try to draw a figure. That's not what a dwaddle is about. When you make the lines of the dwaddle, you're gathering energy and putting it onto the paper. The dwaddle is an icon of solutions and healing energy. It's actually very easy to test. All you have to do is to draw a stick figure, a squiggly line for the body, two squiggly lines for the legs and feet, two more for the arms and legs, and a circle for the head. Draw it fast and keep the pen on the paper or your pencil so that it's drawn kind of like in one motion. Make a lot of swirls and circles so the figure is filled with lines. Make a few extra lines in the area of the problem. Before you draw your dwaddle, have an intention in mind. If you have a headache, as an example, then you know you're drawing the dwaddle to take away the headache. That's the premise of the dwaddle. After you draw the figure on the paper, take the paper, the sheet of paper. Usually I use an 8x10 when I'm doing it on a piece of paper. And then I take a piece of Scotch tape or sticky tape and just paste it on the wall about eye level. Now you stand about 6 feet back, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, it's something like that, and you stare at the center of the dwaddle. Now allow your eyes to wander around the perimeter of the dwaddle for about 30 seconds, just around and around the dwaddle for 30 seconds. And that's it. The headache should be gone. Now, once you're successful at getting rid of headaches for yourself or for others, you can do this for someone else very easily, then you'll want to experiment with the dwaddle. And here's where a parallel dimension comes in. Go to the dimension where you are expert in dwaddles and have your doppelganger help you to decide on what problems the dwaddle can help you with. The dwaddle is a good example of how the law of attraction can be made to work for you. I say that because what appears to be the major roadblock for people learning about the law of attraction is that it doesn't seem to work for them. I say that because we asked people what they thought about and how they used and how they feel about the law of attraction. We received an avalanche of replies, more than 7,000 replies. The big question asked over and over again was, I don't understand why it doesn't work every time. Or, I have not yet been able to master the law of attraction. Another one, well, because so far it hasn't worked. Another one, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Another that we got a lot of response on, it seems to need more concepts or techniques. Another one about the law of attraction, I just don't know where to begin, and on and on and on. Now, most of the people who complained that it didn't work for them seem to expect a magic wand. Just wave it and the water will turn into wine. The lint in your pockets will turn into gold. A cloud will break and release a torrent of $100 bills. If only that were so. There's an old homily that says, you have to learn to walk before you can run. Allow me to carry that metaphor a little bit further forward. Gary and Sally were newlyweds. Sally was making dinner for the first time. She had just bought a nice piece of meat for a roast. Gary watched her prepare the meal. She rubbed the roast with olive oil, sprinkled salt and pepper over it, and then she took a knife and she cut an inch off the left side of the roast and an inch off the right side. Gary looked at the roast. He looked at his wife. He said, Sally, why'd you do that? And she replied, but that's the way you make a roast. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Well, Gary thought that was kind of strange, but he didn't want to argue with his bride. A week later, she had roast again. And again, he's watching her. She cuts an inch off the left side and an inch off the right side. Well, he thought, it's kind of a nutty thing, but my friends have worse things to contend with. I can live with that. And he didn't mention it again. And then, after a while, they were invited to Sally's mother's house for dinner. And she happened to be preparing a roast. And Gary, curious, asked if he could watch her make it. And she said, sure. And sure enough, Sally's mother, she rubbed the roast with olive oil, sprinkled salt and pepper over it. Then she took out a knife and she cut an inch off the left side and an inch off the right. Gary asked her, why'd you do that? And she said, what do you mean, why'd I do it? That's the way you make a roast. Well, Gary thought this here whole family is a little nutty. Oh, well, other families have worse things to deal with. A year went by, and one day they're invited to Grandma's house for dinner. Aha. Gary calls Grandma and said, Grandma, I love roast. Would you mind making one? He's determined to get to the bottom of this. Sure, she says. Well, when they get to the house, Gary asked if he could watch, and Grandma said, fine. Well, she rubbed the roast with olive oil, she sprinkled salt and pepper over it, and she picks up the roast and she puts it in the pan and shoves it into the oven. Wait a minute, Gary said. Didn't you forget something? And Grandma shook her head and she said, no, I don't think so. Gary pointed to the roast. He said, you forgot to cut an inch off the left side and an inch off the right. Oh, Grandma said, I stopped doing that years ago. Why? Gary asked. Grandma looked at him and said, oh, because I bought a bigger pan. Now, friends, in that little story is the reason that people are the way they are, the way your friends are, the way that you are. We call that programming. How many inches are you cutting out of your life because that's the way you're supposed to do it? People who have problems with the law of attraction are those who are still following the old rules, the ones that were laid out for them by their parents, by their family, friends, schools, churches, temples, authority figures, and the general media. Doing everything the same old way, even if the doing flies in the face of logic. Now, I can't undo years of programming. I can't undo years of programming that has been so set that you do it even though there's absolutely no logic to doing it. And you build up a tremendous momentum. The longer you've done something, the more momentum you have, and it takes a bit to get rid of that momentum. Here's one of the ways, because you have to do that before those laws that will bring you the good life can be activated. You've got to slow down that momentum. How to activate the law of attraction is the question that has to be answered, but it appears that there's no answer. If it's not working for so very many people that have read about it in the book, The Secret, and have seen the movie of the same name, if it's not working for them, then there must be something wrong. Now, what can the problem be? There are thousands of organizations out there that give hints, suppositions, and offer methods that are supposed to release the genie to do your bidding. So many of them that it gets a bit confusing at times. That's the main reason I developed the Parallel Dimension Quest program. Because if the question is unanswerable, then we have to look to a place where it's already been answered. Now, the only place that I know of where all the questions have been answered, all the problems solved, is a parallel dimension that has indeed solved the problem. It's where I go when I get stuck for an idea. And I need lots of ideas. Last week, I needed to attract an idea for a new painting. As you may know, that's one of my hobbies. A painting that would stand out among any that anybody has ever produced. Well, that's quite a challenge, I said for myself. But I went to a parallel dimension, the idea came, and I'm working on it right now. Last year, I needed an idea for a novel I was writing. I was stuck. Then I went to a parallel where my counterpart had written the novel. I got the theme, and a rather unusual story evolved. I call that one Zyclo. There are thousands of ideas and solutions in the parallel world. All you have to do is to visit with your twin self, your doppelganger. Merge and gather the energies to do with them whatever you want. This is the ultimate reprogramming department. This is the ultimate way to get rid of that cutting an inch off the left end and inch off the right end of your life, metaphorically speaking, of course. And if you're limited in any area of your life, if you feel subconsciously that you only deserve so much, let's say you feel you only deserve so much in the way of health or money or relationships or friends or whatever, then you can bet it's past negative programming that's holding you back. Now, in our paradigm, the answer is simple. You just visit a dimension where the problem has already been solved. And that's exactly what I intend to show you how to do. Go to an alternate reality, a parallel dimension where the solution has already taken place. Let me tell you how Sarah Zuniga resolved one of her problems. Well, her big problem. Sarah was a housemaid in Cleveland, Ohio. Her salary fluctuated as she worked for $8 an hour, but she didn't have enough accounts to bring her a 40-hour week. She told me her average wage was $265 a week. Her husband had his own business as a floor waxer, and he brought in an additional $700 a week. And between the two salaries, they made do. Cost of living in Cleveland at the time was quite low. Sarah came to my class, and she was fascinated by the concept of her having other selves in other dimensions, who were exactly the same as her, same husband, same parents, same friends, same children, but who was very successful. She couldn't wait to get into the alpha exercise so she could visit her doppelganger. Well, she visualized the transit door while in the alpha exercise, and her intent was to go to a successful Sarah in a business that she loved. She jumped through, and suddenly she reported she saw a twin self. She visualized herself walking over to her twin. Her intent, of course, was what influenced her thoughts. She wanted to be successful. Her intention was she wanted to make $150,000 a year. But most of all, she wanted to be a decorator. That was what was on her mind. She got the figure of $150,000 by thinking she made about $15,000 a year and she wanted to make 10 times more. Well, she imagined herself talking to her twin self. She thought she heard dress up houses for sale, and like me, didn't know what it meant. When she came out of the exercise out of Alpha, she asked me what I thought it meant, and I said, I don't know. I asked if she cleaned any houses that were for sale, and she said no. She was suddenly very quiet and thoughtful as the class went on. Dress up houses for sale. She kept thinking about that. Sarah was now paying no attention to me, and during a break I asked her what was going on. Well, she said, I just got an idea, and I want to see if I should get excited about it or not. And with my permission, she got up on the stage. There were about 100 people, 150 people in the room. And she asked if there were any real estate salespeople in the room. 4 hands went up. Sarah said, I have an idea. And Bert is letting me tell it to you because it kind of proves that this stuff works. And then Sarah asked the 4 real estate salespeople what they thought about her idea. Her idea was that a house that's been on the market and can't sell, sometimes it doesn't sell because it has to be spruced up. Sarah said she's starting a company that will clean a house spotless, and she'll also decorate those rundown houses so that they'll sell. She said that she would take the furniture, move it around. She wouldn't buy anything to put in, but what she would do is utilize everything that's there, because she did have a lot of talent for decorating. And she'd move furniture around. She'd put magazines in the right place, aside from cleaning up. Well, what would you charge? One of the people asked. Sarah told me later she had no idea what to charge. But a figure just popped into her mind, and she said, $500. Now, I'm making a long story short here, because Sarah got 3 houses to work on right in that class. And as she averaged about 8 hours on each job, she'd made exactly 8 times as much as she did by just cleaning houses. Now, I could almost write a book about Sarah. Maybe I will. Sarah and her husband, Peter, because Sarah wound up with more than she could handle. She pretty soon had more work than she could handle. All she did was go to real estate offices. She hired 2 girls, 2 women, and then she hired 3 more, and then 5 more. And pretty soon, she had 87 people working with and for her, including her husband. Peter closed his floor waxing shop to come in with Sarah. Sarah hasn't cleaned a house in a year. She just oversees the decorating that her firm does. I'm really proud of Sarah. A great story about Sarah. I'm also proud of all of you who listen to my words and who act on the suggestions, because I know that you're striving to better yourself and to live a more fulfilled, a more gratifying life. And one thing that you can count on, I'm always going to give you my best. The best of the best concepts, the best of the best techniques, and the best ideas that I've tested and seen retested again and again and again. During the Alpha exercise in the next module, you will have occasion to visit with a doppelganger. But, don't make a big thing out of it. It could be all imagination anyhow. Who can prove any of these things? The thing is, it works. That's always been my major concern. Are you really going to a parallel dimension? There's no way to prove that. But ask another question. Well, does it work? If it does, don't fix it, don't repair it, don't do anything to it. I say it again. Are you really going to a parallel dimension? Maybe yes, maybe no, or maybe. A better question would be, will my jumping through the doorway and imagining that I'm going to a parallel dimension help me? I say from a great deal of past experience, yes, it will. It's my firm belief that this idea of getting support from a twin self in another dimension is one of the most powerful techniques I've ever come across. So then, how do you make the law of attraction work for you? Let's see if we can turn this into a process. Number 1, decide what you want. Now that brings the all-important intent into play. Intention, very important. And the one constant that I found is intent. People often complain about the law of attraction not working, and after questioning them, I discover they don't really know exactly what they want. So what's your intention? Exactly what is it that you want to attract to you? Number 2 would be a catalyst to get you started. A conscious source foundation, so to speak. For our students of PDQ, the means is, of course, visiting a parallel where you already have the thing that you're programming for and imagining that you're getting information from your counterpart who already has what you want to attract. Number 3 is to act on whatever information you receive. In many cases, it will appear to be inspirational, but however you get it, think about how you can use the information and take an action. It could be a small action, but act you must. 3 things again. 1, decide what you want. Number 2, a catalyst to get you started. And number 3, act. Sarah Zuniga wanted not only to get out of the cleaning house business for $8 an hour, she had high hopes, and her intention was to earn $150,000 a year. She went into Alpha and visualized the transit door to other dimensions. There's her catalyst. Again, intent came into the picture. Her intention was to jump through the doorway and see a successful Sarah, a twin self who was making that much money. She imagined speaking to that self, and the information she got was to dress up houses for sale. Now, was that buried deep in her mind, and she just brought it out with this particular technique? What does it matter? What matters is she had it. She had something to work on. Just as when I first used it for photography and I heard take a lot of pictures, well, that didn't make sense. Plant yourself, that didn't make sense either. But ultimately, it did. I planted myself, took a lot of pictures, and boom, there it was. Hall of Fame. Back to Sarah. Sarah acted immediately, surprising us all by asking if there were any real estate people in the class. Are there any real estate salespeople in the class? She asked. She took the action right then and there and told him that if he had any houses that weren't selling, she would change things around by working in the house, making it neat, decorated properly, and ready to sell. Now, it's no guarantee it's going to sell. Depends on the market, of course. But they weren't selling anyway. I don't know that any of the houses that she fixed up sold. All we were interested in was having her work on the houses, and $500 to the people. The real estate people didn't pay the $500. The people paid it. But what's $500 when you're selling a house for $300,000 or $400,000? Well, Sarah had never done anything like that, but she was a good housekeeper, and she also had a talent for decorating. She wasn't able to use that before. Now she was. She was going to incorporate that into her new business. Her case was unusual because it happened right then and there with the 3 houses that she did for those salespeople who were in the class. And she was launched into a new career before she left the class, actually. The point, of course, is still starting with an intention, going to a parallel, and taking an action. And now I'm going to guide you through a quantum jump. This time, I'll help you to get there, and I'll be quiet for a short while to allow you to imagine that you're speaking to your counterpart. So, find yourself a comfortable place where you'll be undisturbed for 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll begin on the next module.